Hi, this is Mrs. Carnes, and this video is on solving word problems again. We're going to talk about a problem this time that involves the formula distance equals rate times time. You may be familiar with that formula. It's a very important formula to know, and we're going to be using it in this example, and you'll see lots of examples like this in word problems. Again, remember, when you come to a word problem, the first thing that you want to do is read the problem very carefully. It might mean that you actually have to read the problem more than one time. You want to think about all the important information in that word problem before you even begin trying to solve it. Let's go ahead and read this problem. Maria left school and traveled towards her friend's house at an average speed of 40 kilometers per hour. Matt left 1 hour later and traveled in the opposite direction with an average speed of 50 kilometers per hour. Find the number of hours Matt needs to travel before they are 400 kilometers apart. So as we go back and we take a look at it, a couple of things we want to notice is that we have two people. We're talking about Maria and Matt. They're going to leave school and they're going to travel in opposite directions. Now it just so happens that Maria is traveling towards her friend's house, which is probably extra information. It doesn't matter that she's traveling to her friend's house. We just know that she and Matt are traveling in opposite directions. We also know that Maria is traveling at 40 kilometers every hour. And we know that Matt is going to go a little bit faster. He can travel 50 kilometers for every hour that he continues to go. We also know that Matt leaves 1 hour later than Maria. So if it takes Maria 5 hours, Matt's only going to be traveling for 4 hours because he left an hour later than she did, an hour after Maria did. And our whole goal is to find out when they're 400 kilometers apart. You could easily draw a picture to sketch this out. We are also going to take a look at some of the information, and we're going to write some of this information down that's important. So we found out that Maria's rate, when she leaves, she travels at 40 kilometers per hour. We also know that Matt's rate is 50 kilometers per hour. We know that Maria's time is what we're trying to find Matt's time, but we also don't know how long Maria travels either. So we're going to let Maria's time, or the hours that she travel, be the variable t, and we'll call it t hours. Maria travels in t amount of hours. And we know that Matt is going to travel 1 hour less than Maria. So we're going to label Matt's time is going to be t minus 1 hours. So again, when we look at this, Maria is traveling at t hours, and so Matt travels Maria's time minus 1 hour because he left an hour later. We also know that the total distance between them is to be 400 kilometers. And so we could very easily take a look at this in a picture. If you just draw a line and they both leave from this point, and we know Maria travels this way and Matt travels this way, we're trying to figure out when they finally reach their destinations, or finally reach 400 kilometers apart, we want to know how long that is. So we know that Marissa's rate times time plus Matt's rate times time must equal our 400 kilometers. So when we put that into an equation, here's what it looks like. We know that it's Maria's rate times time plus Matt's rate times time must equal 400 kilometers. And so we're going to use these values that we came up with and plug it into our formula. And let's see what we get. We end up with Maria traveling 40 times her t hours plus Matt traveling 50 kilometers per hour times his t minus 1 hours, and we know that they must equal the 400 total kilometers. So now that we have this equation, we can go ahead and start solving this. Now remember, we're going to solve this just like we would solve any equation. We see parentheses. That tells us that we need to use the distributive property. Once we use the distributive property, we end up with 40t, nothing's happened there, plus we distribute the 50 and we get 50t minus 50 is equal to 400. Notice that 50 went through the parentheses. Now we see that we have like terms. We need to combine our 40t and our 50t. That gives us 90t minus 50 is equal to 400. And so now our goal is to get t by itself. Remember, we're trying to find out how long it takes Matt. How many hours does Matt travel? And so to get t by itself, we're going to use inverse operations. We will add 50 to both sides. And when we do that, we have 90t is equal to, equal to 450. And then we divide by 90. And when you take 90 into 450, you get t is equal to 5 hours. Now, if you remember, we let t equal Maria's hours. So this is actually Maria's travel time. But the question did not ask us about Maria's travel time. It wanted to know how long Matt had to travel before they would be 400 kilometers apart. So we have to go back and remember that Matt's time was t minus 1 hours. And if t is 5, then we have 5 minus 1 is 4 hours. And that becomes Matt's travel time. And so that would be your answer. They wanted to know Matt's travel time, not necessarily Maria's. But notice that you had to find Maria's travel time before you could see what Matt's travel time was going to be. That's why we used the variables that we did. Now the last part is to always make sure you check your answer to make sure that it really works in the equation. So we're going to end up plugging in 4 hours for Matt's time and 5 hours for Maria's time. Let's see what we get. So Maria travels 40 kilometers per hour and it takes her 5 hours. Matt travels 50 kilometers per hour and it takes him 4 hours. And for them to be 400 kilometers apart. Let's check to see if this works. 40 times 5 is 200. And 50 times 4 is also 200, and we know that 200 plus 200 is 400, and that's what we wanted it to equal. So we know that Maria travels 5 hours, and Matt travels 4 hours. And we know that information, but this is the information that they were asking us for. Excellent. So now you know how to use distance equals rate times time in your word problems. You're going to notice that this will come up a lot.